Thank you very much and welcome back. We're now going to continue the conversation on technology's role in advancing asteroid discovery, because with new technologies and advancements of telescopes and data analysis techniques, asteroid discoveries have been and will continue to accelerate. And our next panel here, we're going to talk about how computational capacities of computers, charged coupled devices, CCD, graphic positioning units, big data, and also cloud platforms like Google, AWS and Azure, and other technologies, how they're enabling new asteroid discoveries and tracking capacities through advanced imaging, cloud-based data analysis, and new visualization tools. And of course, once again, we have a great lineup of experts and panelists here. And just quickly, welcome back, Ed. And next to Ed, we have Robert Jedicke, who is particle physicist and, of course, also part of PanSTARRS, which we're going to talk about. We have Lynn Jones, who is astronomer and performance scientist. And then we have Scott Manley, Scottish YouTube personality and astrophysicist that I'm sure many Astro Day viewers recognize. And also Professor Mario Jurek, who's also been with Asteroid Day a few years, who works as data management project scientist. I thought I would actually reach out to you first, Robert, because you, like I mentioned very briefly, work on one of the most, I would say, prolific asteroid discovery telescopes in operation, and that's PanSTARRS. So can you tell how many asteroids it finds each year, and also which technologies enable this discovery pace?
So I'm actually can't tell you how many it finds every year. I was just trying to think very quickly how many it does. I know that overall, all the surveys together are finding about 2,000 per year, and PanSTARRS finds about half of them, so it's about roughly 1,000 per year, which translates to about 3 per night, right? Which is really incredible considering when I first became an astronomer and started working on asteroid surveys in Tucson, we were finding 3 per month. Right? So we've gone from 3 per month to 3 per day in just the space of 20 years. And when we look for them, of course, we put a lot of effort into trying to maximize our efficiency, right? So we think we're actually doing pretty well at finding them. We think we're about, we think we found about now more than 90% of the really large ones, the ones that are larger than 1 kilometer in diameter.
Wow. But because this is, of course, due to technology that is enabling the process, and we've talked a lot about technology in all the panels, but what specifically here makes that sort of rapid acceleration from, for example, 3 per month to 3 per day?
A lot of it has to do with funding. When NASA started funding the near-Earth asteroid surveys, we were allowed to do a lot more development and create better and bigger telescopes and better and bigger cameras. PanSTARRS is right now the largest telescope that's regularly looking for near-Earth asteroids. It's got a telescope, a mirror that's 1.8 meters in diameter, and it has the largest operational camera right now looking for near-Earth asteroids. It has a camera with 1.5 billion pixels. 1.5 billion, not 15 million, 1.5 billion pixels. And it has a field of view that can image about 35 full moons, right? So in one image, we can image an area of the sky equal to about 35 full moons. So the combination of the very big mirror allows us to collect a lot of light, with a very big camera allows us to image a large area of the sky. And with the very, very fine pixels we have, we can actually detect the motion of all these asteroids, and that in combination allows us to detect all these asteroids.
Well, thank you for that. And I'll just swap over to you, Ed, because the B612 Asteroid Institute, that you're the founder of, is building the Asteroid Decision Analysis and Mapping Platform, that is abbreviation ADAM. Can you explain what this map will enable and what kind of decisions it will also inform and imply?
Yeah, what we're really doing is trying to, if you think about it, build a map of the solar system. And that means that not only do you need to know where all the asteroids are, but you need to know where they're going accurately enough so that you can tell if any of these have a possibility of hitting the Earth, or if any of these are potential mission targets, and so on. When you do that, you also get a map that is sort of your, literally roadmap for how we're going to develop space. So this whole apparatus really requires as feedstock, observations from telescopes like PanSTARRS or LSST, or perhaps NASA's NEOCAM or other things which observe asteroids at specific times. And then what you have to do is turn the crank to say, well, when I see this particular asteroid at this time, it's, where's it going? What is its orbit? How accurately do I know that orbit? And so on. And I project these things forward. And what you do is you slowly build up this 3 spatial dimensions plus time, a 4-dimensional map of the solar system. And that's really the sort of end goal that we have here as an enabler for doing science, for doing exploration, for protecting the Earth, et cetera.
And bearing in mind the advancements that you're both pointing out, what are the challenges today? Is there sort of like a bottleneck anywhere, or is it more funding?
Well, there's a couple of, from a pure technology standpoint, there's a couple different areas. One which is simply getting bigger telescopes. LSST is going to be the next big thing. And it's enormous. It's an 8.5 meter diameter main mirror. But it's not just the size of the telescope, it's the size of the detector. As you mentioned, Rob, Pan-STARRS is an absolutely enormous detector, and we need to get bigger and bigger detectors. But then on the opposite end, once you have those observations, it's a matter of being able to crunch those numbers, being able to have the computational resources to do that. And that's where the cloud computing revolution that's been happening in the last 10 years really comes into play, because you can essentially rent CPU time or computer time as much as you need when you need it, and it's a pretty seamless process. And taking advantage of that is something that we're doing now.
And you mentioned LSST, the Large Synoptic Survey Telescope, and that's why I'd like to hand over the question to you, Lynn, because you're an astronomer and you're also a scientist for LSST. And LSST has a large scientific collaborative working together in preparation for the new data. So if we look at data and what tools and platforms are being employed to both share and analyze and of course distribute such large data within sort of a group of scientists.
Yeah, so Ed had a great point there about everything being useful to put things online. So what we're doing with LSST is we're building tools so that you can fire up a web browser, or you can go online to access the data center where we keep our data, and we also let people run analysis there. So you don't have to run it on your own computer, you're running it on our data center. You fire up your web browser, you can log in, and then it doesn't matter where you are and where your collaborators are, you can all work together and share the data and work on the same information and share plots. So the LSST is developing this a platform to do this called the LSST Science Platform.
And when you retrieve all this big data, what's the projection of the retrieval of data?
Well, so that's the main goal here, is that you don't actually have to retrieve it to your own computer. You can leave the data at our data center. You can run your analysis right next to the data, so that we don't have to transfer around so many petabytes of images.
And I would jump from Lynn to you, Mario, because the LSST telescope will see the light in a few years, and of course, as Pan-STARRS, it's also a massive telescope that will produce a large amount of data. So what new technology approaches and enablers are being used to combine and also retrieve this kind of amount of data?
Yeah, that is one of the key challenges for us. Rob mentioned, starting with 3 per month, then going up to 3 per day. With LSST, we're going to have nights with maybe 50 or so NEO discoveries per night, and something like 50 to 100,000 discoveries of all asteroids in total. So we now have an issue where when you look up in the sky and you see an asteroid, and the way you know that it's an asteroid, not a star, is you come back and it moves. Well, there are so many asteroids in the sky up to the depth that LSST is going to observe that if you don't come back fairly quickly, you will have seen all of them have moved, but you don't know which one is which. So the way we try to resolve that is through software, basically complex algorithms that actually the Pan-STARRS team pioneered about 10 years ago, to take 2 images of the same area of the sky fairly quickly, one after the other, something like 10, 20, 30 minutes, and then associate the two observations of the same asteroid quickly in those two images, project where they might be a couple of days later, project where that might be a couple of days later, and combine all of that together. So for that, we need quite complex software machinery to actually do all of those combinations in some reasonable amount of time. And in essence, we've spent the last 10 years trying to develop those algorithms.
And also posing the question there, what are sort of the biggest challenges that you're facing today?
I think that is the biggest challenge. How are we, my biggest fear is, for example, that a machine like LSST or a machine like NeoCam, we get all these wonderful data sets and we can see all these objects moving, but we don't know which one is which. So making sure that we can actually truly discover them, not just see them and then be confused about them, that is really the key thing for us.
And Scott, you're an astronomer by training and a space enthusiast. I'm thinking also out of your perspective, you want to share maybe the technologies and enablers that you see at the moment or foresee in the near future that can help advance asteroid discovery and data analysis.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously very aware of how computers have changed. I mean, even since I did my training, I actually brought this book along because it's by a friend of mine, Bill Napier, who studied asteroid impacts. And in his thriller with a potential impactor, he was including the most powerful computer in the world in the 1990s, which was the 1 teraflop ASCII read. And of course, now I carry 1 teraflop in my pocket in a cell phone. So obviously, Moore's law is hugely beneficial to all of this. Beyond building the hardware, just the technology that has moved forward has been incredibly beneficial to the asteroid search. And beyond that, you've got the GPUs, which have been developed largely because of video gamers, believe it or not. So they've got this strange duality where people playing things for entertainment have actually helped contribute to scientific studies by the hardware being required for their pastime. But yeah, I mean, I feel that one of the most important things that comes out of this is that all the data that we're getting from this, large parts of it is going to be publicly available, and people do love to dig into it, and people find things. There's plenty of cases where projects have made data available in a format and tools so that people can find objects. I think of things like AstroRank, and there was a video game where they actually allowed players to look for exoplanets using real data, and I'd love to see that being applied to asteroid searches, because people have a lot of spare time to burn, and if they can help us, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, and I think the whole the sort of gamification aspect also correlates and ties into the educational aspect, that we want people to become educated who are maybe not in the sector, but still to be enticed to understand why do we need to know about asteroids or space mining or whatever it might be. Do you see any other industries, and it can be to any of you, I mean, the synergy of gaming and space, are there sort of other industries or technologies where in the future or in the near future you can see sort of synergies coming together?
I think this is an interesting example where actually I think this is where other industries can help us, because the kinds of things that we've been struggling with over the last decade or so, these are not typical astronomer problems, building a bigger telescope or building a bigger camera. These are algorithms. So folks with knowledge of data science, programmers, people who are trying to find correlations in large data sets and so forth, those are exactly the kinds of skills that now apply to the problem of finding asteroids. So to me, the interesting idea here is that when we talk about amateur astronomers, we typically talk about people who might have a small telescope in their backyard and they look for asteroids and look for stars. But you could have a completely different kind of amateur astronomer today who, at daytime might be working for Google, and at nighttime they might be coming up with algorithms that discover asteroids in these big data sets that we're going to be generating. So I think that's an untapped resource that we should make avail of.
And is there any, I mean, again, coming from the tech sector, because there's a lot of talk about, when we talk about big data, there's also the infringement and there's also the unconscious bias and what are we doing with this data and so forth. When it comes to the space sector and collecting all of this data, are there any ethical impacts of this? Anyone want to pick that one? Ed?
I'm not sure I really understand the question. I think the ethical issues that you raise often have to do with people's data. You know, data about individuals in society. Whereas what we're looking at really is objects in space, natural objects in space. So I'm not sure I really see those kind of issues at this point.
A potential problem might be, what happens if you discover something that you think will impact the Earth, right? And how do you, I think what's, the more power people have to make those discoveries on their own, say in large data sets with their own algorithms, I think there needs to be a clear process on what do you do with that information so that we don't inadvertently cause panics and things like that.
And there is a lot of discussion, and there has been for about 10 years on exactly this topic, Mario. That's a very good point. You have to have an openness and willingness to share your calculations and how you do it with everyone else in order that others can independently verify what you've seen. So
this is where Adam will be extremely useful.
Yes.
Robert, did you want to add something to it?
I was going to bring up the same point that Mario did, basically, that there is policy issues about how we actually announce information about an asteroid, a possible asteroid impact, because usually we can't say, yes, an asteroid is definitely going to hit. There's always a probability that's going to hit. And for every asteroid that does hit, there's going to be 10 or 100 that we think might hit, right? So trying to decide how we announce that information and how we react to it is very difficult.
And also, speaking of sort of trends and what we foresee, I wanted to sort of see with all of you, do you see any in the future, like trends when it comes to new asteroid discoveries or tracking capabilities and so forth that you foresee coming maybe from another sector, or is maybe a capacity that is needed when it comes? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be something, just as telescopes on the ground have evolved and gotten better at finding more and more asteroids. To get where we would like to get in terms of finding all these, these asteroid worlds in our solar system, we're going to have to come up with something beyond LSST eventually. LSST is the next big thing. There is possibility of NASA flying an infrared space telescope called NEOCAM, which would be very complementary to LSST. But even beyond that, there has to be something else. And here we have the hints of using Moore's law together with people's gaming obsessions to leverage the technologies there of faster and faster graphics processing and cheaper and yet more sensitive detectors, thank you to cell phones and medical imaging. The combination of that may allow us to build small spacecraft in space that you could spread around the solar system, and that could, even though they're small, you can make up for that fact by them having very, very long exposure times with fast graphics processing compensating for the motion of these asteroids. So that's something that we're working on at the Asteroid Institute together with our friends at JPL.
Interesting, because we also talked about that in the former panel about small satellites and the beneficial impact of that you have both the cost goes down, but you also can be more risk pro, and it's more scalable in a sense. Were you going to add something?
I was going to make the same point.
You were going to make the same point. Any other technological trends that, Lynn?
Well, it's maybe not a technological trend exactly, but when Mario was talking and Scott was talking about people having time that they want to spend with our data that is public, the Galaxy Zoo is a great example of regular people coming in to have a look at galaxies that were found with the Sloan Digital Sky Survey and classifying those galaxies. And there are things we can do in along the same vein with asteroids discovered by LSST.
Scott?
You can also leverage people that have worked on this or who have classified the galaxies to then train your machine learning to then make your algorithms better. So it's a feedback loop as well that you have to understand.
Yeah, actually, there's an interesting trend here. So, for instance, if you looked in the 1990s at images of the Earth, this is something that at that time was really the province of spy agencies looking down on the Earth and specialized analysts who could then try and figure out what other countries were doing and so on. But that's all changed now. Now there are millions of people, and in fact, everybody does it all the time on their cell phones using Google Maps, right? And now people have mapped all sorts of things on Earth. They found all sorts of things. They use them for all kinds of various usages that people hadn't thought of before. But they are doing, every time you zoom in on an area on Google Maps, you're doing something far more sophisticated than any analyst did in the 1980s, who was a highly trained person who spent 10 years learning his craft of how to interpret satellite images of the Earth. And now everyone does it on their map. They zoom in, they do all this other stuff, they label points, they create maps and so on, and it's become easy. And really, that's one of the things that we want to do as we, first off, it's not just a matter of collecting the data. That's the necessary first step. But then you have to turn it into a system which is usable like that. And that's the second step.
Exciting times ahead, and technology definitely is an enabler, but the humans are always needed, whether it's in space or on Earth. And with that, let's focus in and hand over to my colleague for the next insertion.
Greetings, Asteroid Day. I'm Guy Wells. I'm here at the Northolt Branch Observatories in London. We're an amateur observatory that primarily deals with the observations of near-Earth asteroids. Tonight it appears to be clear night, so we have a busy schedule, and we'll be observing many asteroids and submitting our data to the Minor Planet Centre so we can better refine the orbits of these objects. We also quite active on social media, so if you're interested in asteroids or comets or anything like this, do follow us on Twitter or Facebook. We also have a live question and answer coming up in the next couple of days for Asteroid Day. And we hopefully will be doing a couple of live broadcasts of near-Earth objects. So please come join us. Thanks. Have a happy Asteroid Day.
Thank you. Joining me now is Julia, our regional coordinator of the Asteroid Day event in Helsinki.
Hello.
Hi, Julia. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. So, Julia, can you please let us know what great events are happening there in Finland?
Yes, we will be organizing an Asteroid Day event at the Helsinki Observatory. We will have some asteroid researchers telling about their research. And we also have this crater workshop where you can create your own crater by throwing this rock into a pile of flour. And then we have this high-speed camera that shows you how the crater is being formed. And we have some fun activities for children as well, if the weather is good. And we have, of course, a free entrance to this event and free entrance to the Observatory Museum. And also we will be showing the Asteroid Day broadcast on a big screen.
Oh, that's fantastic. Julia, thank you so much for your time and have a great time over there, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Back to the studio.
Thank you very much, Solomon. Joining us now from SES, one of the success stories when it comes to space in Luxembourg, is Roy Pinto. Thank you so much for joining us here on Asteroid Day. Firstly, to those who might not know, explain what SES is and what they do.
Thank you very much, Lisa. So, SES is not a consumer, a brand name, but we are the largest commercial satellite operator in the world. I still get impressed by our own statistics at times. We reach more than 1 billion people and 350 million homes distributing TV. We are using our capacity to distribute Asteroid Day today. And not only that, we provide data services across a number of market segments. We provide internet on planes, ships, we provide broadband access, and we are a global company, a very proud company headquartered in Luxembourg that is providing services all around the world. We are also the only one that, for the space geeks that are watching us, we are the only one that works across different orbits. The traditional geostationary orbit, the non-GSO MEO orbit, and we make that a single network that serves all these customers simultaneously. So I'm very proud to work for SES.
And we just have to give a little call out because you're actually Brazilian originally, spent a lot of time in the UK as well. And I've heard that the Brazilians are very good at celebrating Asteroid Day.
So I'm told. Apparently there are 60 or over 60 events in Brazil celebrating Asteroid Day. I didn't know that. I'm surprised that there was such support for Asteroid Day. It's an important cause, making people aware of what happens, what are the threats that an asteroid can pose, it's something that all of us should have an interest on. And SES is certainly proud to be a sponsor of Asteroid Day.
And on the point of sponsoring Asteroid Day, what is it, why is it that SES does this? Is it also to kind of incentivize younger people to think about science in the future, for instance?
Absolutely. We see today that many people are not that interested in STEMs, in physics, maths, chemistry. We want new people, millennials, the next generation, to take from where we are leaving it and progress space technology, space startups, be bold and go where we didn't go yet. So just this platform to interest young people on space and space technology is invaluable to us.
And just very briefly, final question, but an interesting point, I think. You are working with the World Economic Forum on thinking about a space footprint.
Yes, absolutely. So the World Economic Forum has these councils, and there is a Space Council. And 2 years ago, we started looking at the footprint that different companies and organizations put on space, the sustainability of space, like we have a measure for cars, planes. So the World Economic Forum, along with MIT, SES, the European Space Agency, we are creating a space sustainability rating. It's a measure of the impact that we are having on the space environment so that we can measure it and preserve it for future generations. It's tremendously important to do that.
Roy, thank you so much for your time. Thank you to SES for being a sponsor of Asteroid Day. We couldn't do this without amazing sponsorship and support like yours. We're going to have a quick information break now, and after that, it'll be over to Scott.
Dr. Ed Liu has been to space 4 times, and during one mission lived on the International Space Station for 5 months. With a bird's eye view of the moon and the many craters caused by asteroids, he reminds us that our Earth is impacted more than the moon. Asteroid Day Live is the only programming dedicated to introducing you to many of the most prominent asteroid experts in the world. We learn by listening to them share their personal experiences and knowledge of how our solar system was formed, how it is evolving, and how we can protect our beautiful blue planet. But this programming wouldn't be possible without the generous support of major sponsors, including the government of Luxembourg and you. You play a critical role in our ability to shine a bright spotlight on the leading work of astronomers, engineers, scientists, space mission operators, and astronauts, our global rock stars, who bring the topic of asteroids closer to people of all ages and remind our government leaders of the importance of funding planetary science. Asteroids play an important role in our lives, from the formation of our solar system to their extraordinary value for future resource utilization, to enabling ongoing exploration of our solar system, and finally, when they impact our home planet. Asteroid Day is more than just a broadcast program. It's thousands of independently organized events in 192 countries. These events are the heart and soul of Asteroid Day, as they connect and engage students on the subject of asteroids. For many students across the world, Asteroid Day is their only opportunity to listen to, learn from, and to meet astronomers, astrophysicists, and astronauts, heroes of the STEM generation. Your support enables the growth of our network of independent event organizers, so more events can take place. It allows us to not only encourage the future generation of scientists, but to grow our online library of educational tools, enabling more people to dig deeper into asteroids and to connect to scientists, observers, and astronauts. Your support enables us to meet the goals of the United Nations Office for the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space Affairs by generating awareness of what we can do to protect our planet. Please consider becoming part of this movement by donating to Asteroid Day today.